Now, as tensions grow with China, so does the possibility that the Greens could win the balance of power at the upcoming election. Experts are warning that the Greens could be a serious concern to national security. The Executive Director of the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, Peter Jennings, has said their defence policy would make us ripe for the picking in terms of China's attempts to dominate the region and our island neighbours. Joining me now to discuss is Senior Analyst in Defence Strategy and Capability at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, Malcolm Davis. Malcolm, on Monday, the Greens' peace and disarmament spokesman, Senator Jordan Steele-John, told The Australian that concerns over the Solomons China agreement were racist and paternalistic. He also said that China is not a military threat to us. Are the Greens just ignorant, or is this just all driven by the ideological pureness? It's hard to understand how they could have these positions given everything we've heard, particularly in the last 12 months.
Look, Rita, I think that the Greens' disarmament and peace policy, because it's not a defence policy, really amounts to saying, stop the world, we want to get off. Essentially, what they seek is to go down the same path in many respects as what New Zealand has done, which is to dramatically reduce defence spending and to withdraw from a major role in the region, to gut defence spending and to essentially embrace a peace support role for any residual forces that we maintain. But the problem is Australia is not New Zealand. We have very different strategic challenges that we face. We are looking at a rising and aggressive China that seeks to impose its own hegemony on the Indo-Pacific region and is directly threatening us in the form of not only grey zone activities and coercion, but just recently used a high-energy laser to endanger one of our RAAF aircraft in our maritime and air approaches. So I think the Greens' policy is, to put it bluntly, and I will happily echo my boss Peter Jennings, utterly insane.
Well, it is utterly insane, but they may have the balance of power. If it is a hung parliament, Labor will have to form a coalition with them and they would wield significant power. Peter Jennings has suggested they be given classified security briefings so they can change their point of view. But do you really think that's going to happen? It seems this is their dogma. This is what they believe in. They're anti-Australian, they're anti-US alliance, they're anti-military.
Look, I think that giving the Greens classified briefings on the security environment is an important step if they were in a coalition with Labor, because they do need to be made aware of the dangers that this country now faces from a rising China. But I would also hope that a Labor government would essentially sideline the Greens, give them minor portfolios and give them limited access to important defence and national security issues, because looking at their peace and disarmament policy, it would be extremely dangerous for Labor to give the Greens any real influence over this country's defence and national security policy. And I would also emphasise that there's not much daylight between the Labor Party and the Liberal National Coalition on defence and national security. They broadly agree with each other on the key issues, including the threat posed by China. So I would hope that Labor would be responsible and basically say to the Greens, sit off on the sidelines, do some things there, but you're not going to get access to defence and national security.
Yes, but if they need them to form government, if they need them to be able to pass legislation, particularly in the upper house, they're going to have significant power. Let's just play a hypothetical game here. Let's say the Greens get their way and defence spending is cut dramatically, which is what they want. What position would that leave Australia in?
It would certainly leave Australia far more vulnerable. If you read their policy, then they want to firstly tear up AUKUS, which is the agreement that was signed last year to collaborate on critical science and technology areas in critical and emerging technologies and long-range strike capabilities. Let's put the nuclear submarines to one side because they're going to take so long to appear. Secondly, they would dramatically reduce capability within the ADF that gives us a means to defend this country at great distance. So we would have no means to defend at long range. Thirdly, they would remove Pine Gap and Northwest Cape. And both of these joint facilities play a critical role in ensuring international peace and stability because they reinforce deterrence. They reinforce an ability for the Americans to understand what the Chinese and the Russians are doing with their nuclear forces. If you remove those joint facilities, then the risk of nuclear war actually goes up. And then, of course, we get into all sorts of other potential issues that the Greens would want to have a say in, including, the decision to go to war being forced on a parliamentary vote. So I do think that it's really vital that Labor takes a principled moral stand here and thinks what's best for the country as opposed to what's best for themselves, and puts the Greens at arm's length.